It is the first round of the NBA playoffs. Ninja here with John Henson and Christopher Walder. And guys, let's continue on. Talk about the Clippers and the Nuggets, the Michael Malone-less Denver Nuggets all of a sudden. Hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are locked in for now and throughout the entire NBA playoffs. Guys, Nuggets, Clippers, series prices kind of all over the place this week. You know, the end of the regular season and into the play-in games and the opening round here. The Nuggets around even money at FanDuel here. Clippers coming back as the ever so slight faves around minus 120. The spread has the Clippers as minus 1.5 game favorites. Total games at 5.5 with the over around minus 168 as well. Season series knotted up at 2 games apiece. Chris, what are you expecting out of this Denver Nuggets team in a post Michael Malone playoff series world that suddenly we now exist in?
More of the same, to be honest, because if you're firing your head coach, especially this late in the season, which is the latest it's ever been done in NBA history, you're hoping as a general manager or working in the front office that the drop-off won't be significant enough to sabotage your team's chances of competing and being competitive in the NBA playoffs. And obviously, Los Angeles will have the coaching advantage here. Tyronn Lue, highly respected, highly revered. And David Adelman, we haven't really seen much of him. He hasn't had coaching experience in the past. I think the smartest thing that he's done is, you know what, go into these timeouts, go into these huddles, and if the players have something they want to say or run up as a play, let them do it. We've seen that specifically with Nikola Jokic over the past few games heading into this series with the Los Angeles Clippers. I think oftentimes when coaches can get fired, you're expecting like this burst of enthusiasm from the players because they all want to win the new interim or new head coach their first few games, kind of get them off on the right foot. And I expect that to be the case here in this series with the Los Angeles Clippers. The timing isn't perfect, of course, but I think we are kind of blowing out of proportion what Malone's absence will do to hinder the Nuggets in this series with LA. In Denver's eyes, they probably think they're better off anyway.
John, Clippers, kind of red hot, 20-9 since the All-Star break, 10-1 in their last 11. Is this Clippers team a terrible matchup for the Nuggets, who are, sort of in a bit of turmoil right now with the head coaching situation, sort of thin beyond the 5-man starting rotation with this Nuggets team? Is this just a bad matchup for Denver?
For Denver, this is going to be a tough matchup because the Clippers are finally healthy. This is the team that they've been trying to build and put out on the floor all together for 2 or 3 years, it seems like, even get rid of Paul George. And so, for a team that's in turmoil with the coaching and distractions, this is going to be a tough series. I think the series goes maybe 6 or 7, and the Clippers have just as good a chance of beating the Nuggets because, hey, look, at the end of the day, they don't have their leader, they don't have their head coach, and, Tyronn Lue was in a similar situation with the Cavs when he left. I came in. The front office gave him an ultimatum of, hey, they wanted him to lose, and he said, I'm not going out there to lose, and he ended up, being fired. I think there was a similar situation with Mike Malone. He said, I'm going to do this my way. I won a championship. If we lose, you're going to fire me anyways. So Denver wanted to do because now the front office obviously has their hands on it. Maybe they know what they're doing. I don't.
Chris, kind of a godsend that the Clippers were able to get rid of Playoff P, as he is known. But how impressive, really, has this Clippers season been, considering Kawhi Leonard has missed 45 games? How impressed are you with the Clippers, in 2024, 2025 going into this series?
I mean, very impressive. If you check out oddshark.com, I reviewed all of the win total projections that I made for each of the 30 teams in the association that I made prior to the start of the season, and I had the Clippers under 37.5 victories. So, yeah, I kind of look like a doofus now selling the Clippers short like that. But, I mean, in all honesty, who saw this coming? Kawhi Leonard is perpetually injured. I left this team for dead when Paul George elected to sign with the Philadelphia 76ers. I thought they may try to shake things up, blow up the roster, maybe move James Harden for parts and explore what the market is for someone like Leonard. But what we ultimately ended up with was a guy like Norman Powell, for example, who emerged from not obscurity, but just kind of being more of an afterthought on this roster to almost lead the team in scoring at 21.8 points per game. I was advocating for him to be an all-star. You look at the trade deadline, they brought on Bogdanovic to be like their key sixth man off the bench, who I think will have an impact in this series. Ivica Zubac was playing at an all-NBA level. I think he's a bona fide contender for Defensive Player of the Year. And someone like Derrick Jones Jr. as well, who was a part of that Dallas Mavericks team who made the Western Conference Finals. He's the ideal 3-and-D guy for this roster. And if you're looking at the work that all of the coaches in the league did this season, it's hard for me to say that Tyronn Lue didn't have one of the more superior, one of the more underrated jobs of any coach this season. I would only put Kenny Atkinson ahead of him and JB Bickerstaff with the Detroit Pistons in like the coach of the year running. I think Lue has done a fabulous job, even more so than someone like JJ Redick with the Los Angeles Lakers. And you look at the Clippers record without Kawhi Leonard, their best player on both ends, 24-21. That's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a guy like, Norm Powell, being an X factor from the get-go this season with the all-star caliber season he had. But let's talk potential X factors for this series, guys. Could be a player, could be an element of the game, could be down to X's and O's, whatever. And John Henson, I'll start with you. What do you earmark as an X factor for this series between the Clippers and the Nuggets?
I'm going to go Jamal Murray. I think that's why you're getting good value on a Nuggets team with arguably one of the best players ever, the MVP. Is he healthy? Is he confident? Is he going to shoot the ball well? Is he going to return to form? I think it's just a matter of time before he gets back to where he was. He's working through it. His teammates want him to be great, and that's going to be the X factor. Jamal Murray comes and becomes the guy who we think he can be. Which with a guy like Jokic, you don't have to be all world, but you have to be, pretty good. He needs a second option, a running mate with Porter Jr. So, yeah, Jamal Murray is my X factor. And if you think he's going to be fine, you're getting great value on the Nuggets.
Yeah, undeniable, certainly with a guy like Jamal Murray and his pedigree, what we know from him in the postseason. Chris, what about you? X factor for this one here between Denver and LA?
I like that Jamal Murray pick because I don't necessarily trust him, especially coming off of injury. He's hit so many clutch shots in the playoffs, but again, health is paramount for Denver to succeed, especially in this series. But my X factor is also for the Denver Nuggets, and I'm going to go with Aaron Gordon. He's been a beast over the last month or so. I was looking at some of his more recent box scores. He had 33 points against the Memphis Grizzlies recently, had 38 against the Golden State Warriors in mid-March. So he's capable of really showing out on the offensive end, which we're not really expecting from him more often than not. That role usually falls upon Murray or even Michael Porter Jr. to a lesser extent. But I think for Denver to prevail here, I think Gordon has to be the second best player for the Nuggets, especially defensively, because they just don't have a lot of bodies to throw at Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, if he's going to be playing 30-plus minutes a night and not taking off any games because he is as close to as 100% as a Kawhi Leonard could be at this stage of his career, then Gordon needs to be out there plenty of minutes and with plenty of run to counteract whatever Kawhi Leonard brings to the table. So he can be a jack-of-all-trades player. We've seen him put up incredible assists and rebounding numbers over the last several months. So Aaron Gordon, keep an eye out for him because I think at the end of this series, we're going to be looking back, especially if Denver wins, as him being the second most important player throughout this entire series.
The Kawhi injury or the injury, right? They say he's going to be limited for the rest of his career. His knee, this, and the third. Listen, when I was quote unquote potentially going to be limited with a back kind of issue, I was out of the league. So that's how good he is. Shout out to Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah,
thank you for 2019.
We'll take 40 games. We'll pay you $30 million. Just get us to the promised land. I love it.
And he's done it, and it's going to be very interesting to see what he does in this series. And we've talked about a few players already, and John, you talked about Kawhi crushing prop markets here since he's come back. And we've talked about Jamal Murray. We've talked about Aaron Gordon. Anybody else sort of on the periphery of what you guys might be betting in terms of player props for this series? or a game-by-game basis? John Henson, I'll start with you.
Well, I do these you have these little apps where you can select props and player props, and so I'll do a little 5 pick, and Norman Powell's a guy that he's kind of been also a little criminally underrated. I took him to score over 10. He had 14 in a quarter and a half. So this is a guy that you can still get decent value on his scoring, on certain apps and depending on what you use. So maybe that's another guy to kind of look out for. Not a sexy name. And we know Vegas loves sexy names, like when Luka was returning to the Lakers and his player point prop with 8 points, automatic fade. So maybe a guy like that, you can kind of steal some, maybe a 19 and a half, maybe a 20, point on the player market per game.
Chris, what about you? Player props.
I'm going to be keeping a close eye on the PRA numbers for Russell Westbrook during the course of this series. I mean, there were reports emerging when Michael Malone got fired that part of the reason why he was let go was because of his willingness to give Westbrook a little bit more minutes and a little bit more run than perhaps he should have when he was being more of a detriment out there on the hardwood. I mean, we can be infatuated with his points, rebounds, and assist numbers all we want, but if he is struggling defensively, if he is turning the rock over at a high rate, yeah, maybe he should have been pulled a lot quicker than Malone was letting him to be. But I'm looking at the PRA numbers for his game one against the Los Angeles Clippers. It's currently set at 18.5, which he did go over in 11 of his last 15 games. But again, if Westbrook struggles, this is a different coach. This is Adelman we're talking about. If he does start to become a deterrent to what Denver is trying on the hardwood, then I think he will see less minutes. And in the playoffs anyway, starters do get a lot more playing time anyway. Maybe Westbrook will be the odd man out in this rotation. But if he does succeed, especially early on in games 1 and 2 on their home floor, those PRA numbers will go up.
Yeah, in the playoffs, those rotations tighten up a little bit. Starters do stay on the floor a bit longer than what we've grown accustomed to in the regular season. Let's talk about what you guys are picking for the series. Let's talk about your bets that you've got. This one, razor thin, as we've seen at the top of the video, sitting here on a Tuesday afternoon. Nuggets around even money in series betting. The Clippers, slight faves, around minus 118, minus 120. Clippers, minus 1.5 in series spread. And the total games over 5.5 at minus 170. The under coming in at around plus 138. John Henson, I'll start with you. Tough one to sort of call here, given the star power, given the pedigree that we're going to see on the floor here. But what are you going to bet for this series?
Relying on that, players love Mike Malone. That's part of the reason why. He's going to stick to his guns, and he's not going to disrespect a guy like Russell Westbrook, who's a Hall of Famer. So, shout out to him. Hope he lands on his feet. But for series wise, you got to give me money line. Nuggets, Jokic. Like, what are we talking about here, right? Arguably the MVP, 3 out of the last 4. Could be 4 out of 5. The FGA didn't have a nuclear type season. So if I'm getting the lines going up, it was minus 120 yesterday, it's sitting at minus 136. You probably want to lock it in quickly. But if I can get close to even money, maybe a little bit juice for the Nuggets to win this series, I'm all in.
Chris Walder, finish it off here. What do you like for the series? Clippers Nuggets.
All right, so this is probably my most creative bet of any of the series that we've talked about here today. I am taking this series to go 7 games and the home team to win every single time at plus 1,800, which I got earlier this morning at FanDuel Sportsbook. And the reason that I foresee this happening is that the Clippers have actually not won a game, or they've only won 1 game in Denver since the 2020 season, and that was this season. So they have a long history of just really struggling when competing in Denver. And we all know how good the Nuggets can be at Ball Arena. They are worse this season than they were in previous seasons, but they are still a force to be reckoned with on their home court. I actually do foresee this being one of those situations where it's just like 2-2, 1-1-1. If you're at home, you have the advantage. And then game 7 with the best player in this series, and Nikola Jokic, that will be the determining factor. And plus 1,800, it's definitely worth a sprinkle. That's tremendous value.